From beautiful East Tennessee in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains, you are listening to the Sherry Voluntary Show, and I do appreciate you spending your time with me on this extra late edition of the show, the Sherry Voluntary After Dark. And I'm joined tonight with my handsome son.
That's me. I only come out at night.
Ronan. Can you guys hear us okay? I think they can hear us okay.
How's it going, Lankowski?
So today we're going to talk a little bit about property rights, and maybe get into a little bit about some psychedelics or mushrooms, Paul Stamets, Terrence McKenna. Ronan knows a lot about that, so we might do that. Let's see if they can hear us. There we are. Hey, guys. You're quiet. Okay, Dan says they can hear us. That's great. All right, so what I wanted to start out with this evening, and this is a solo show, which I don't do very often, but...
I don't count as a person. Do you hear that?
But, I didn't have a scheduled guest. I sort of grabbed Ronan at the last minute, but I don't normally do these, but I'm going to try and do them more often because, putting together a podcast and doing all the little million things that you need to do all the time, and all as one person and my producer Daniel, who helps me out, it's a lot of work. So I'm trying to keep the show going and also lighten my load a little bit. And one other thing I should probably mention is I love my listeners, and I have quite a few, and I'm really thankful for them. But I also need supporters. So if you appreciate the Sherry Voluntary Show and you would like to see me continue to bring you things that you're interested in about voluntarism and anarchy, just anything, libertarianism. I hope to be doing some more social type stuff soon. You can go to the patreon.com/Sherry Voluntary, and I'd love to have your support. So, thanks a lot. So let's talk about this a little bit. I recently, I guess it was yesterday, I got into a discussion with someone online about property rights. That was the umbrella that it was under, but it came off of a post someone had posted from the Libertarian Party that if you oppose immigration because you fear the costs of Medicare, welfare, you don't have a problem with immigration, you have a problem with entitlements, and the only party that wants to end entitlements is the Libertarian Party. I'm not a party member, y'all, so we won't get into my deal with the party, but I saw this man's response, and one of the things he had said was that that's exactly the reason that he's not a libertarian anymore, which in a way is a good thing, right? Because we want people to determine where they belong. And if you are for entitlements, you absolutely do not belong in the Libertarian Party. So he had made this statement, and he was talking about why. And I found it really interesting that one of the reasons, the strongest reasons, he said he's for the free market and its functioning, but that he believes that a wealthy country like America, that we should take care of our, citizens who are less fortunate. And he said, especially considering how highly predictive parents' social class is of their children's social class. So he said, we like to tell ourselves the story where everyone ends up with what they deserve based on their hard work. And I get what he's saying, that but what he's doing is he doesn't understand capitalism. And so, of course, people from the generation past, when they can have enough wealth to leave behind and put their families and society in general in a better place, that's a good thing for everyone, even the poorest among us. But what he really is doing, and his intentions are in the right place, he's not a bad person, but his solutions are wrong. His heart's in the right place, but his solutions are just flat out wrong. And they're wrong because they violate the individual, of course, because one of the things he also doesn't understand, we talked about money, and he said, well, I don't really believe that you own every dime that you make because of what you start with in life. So the privilege, if you will, that you start with. And so, that's just That's just one of the tyrannies of life. That's one of the things that we cannot control. There are many tyrannies in life, not just governmental. Some of them are things that we're not going to have anything to do with. I cannot control that the sun rises and sets when it does, and that the moon does the things to the earth that it does. I can't control that. That's a tyranny in a way. So generational influence and generational wealth are things that I don't have control over, but I do control what I do with those things. And so I think that that misunderstanding is really a frightening one, because if you don't believe that you own every dime you make and that you should be able to do as you will with it, then what you're doing is you're actually making a claim over someone's labor. Or if you make a claim over their labor, you're making a claim over their money, you're making a claim over their labor. And if you're making a claim over their labor, you're making a claim on their very life. And I'm not willing to give up any claim on my life to anyone for any good cause. So
it's like he's saying that when you're born, you start in debt.
Oh, that's an interesting, I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, he's saying you're indebted to everyone else and to past generations. Or can you expound on that?
So when you're born, there's some sort of baseline, and then the people who are above the baseline owe the people who are below the baseline some sort of compensation.
Right, because we started in a different place than they started. So, I mean, we of course as libertarians wouldn't really go for that. So
who's to say what's baseline?
Yeah, that was one of my other points with him, was that taxes are just a function of law. They're not a function of morality. It's not like, he's saying that taxes are, what the price we pay to live in a civilized society and help people and everything. But taxes are a function of law. So if they can tax you the 1%, why can't they tax you the 100%? You're making the case for them to take all of it, because if taxes, by the government taking our money, they can better distribute the wealth so that other people can have a slice of the pie, as if there's not enough pie to go around, then what you're making the case for is for them to take it all, because if they are the best managers of it, then why should we have any of it? So like I said, this gentleman, and he was very nice to me. We didn't have a problem, but he clearly doesn't understand libertarianism, and that's another thing, subject. But many people will be libertarians, or they think they're libertarians anyways, and then they will leave they'll stomp out. I don't like you guys. I'm going home, whatever. And so
That's what you did to the party.
What?
Nothing.
So who knows? My son's trying to rat me out on something. But what was I talking about? That people, they'll say, well, I was an anarchist, but then I grew up, Well, what they really are telling you is that they never put the time and effort to learn what those terms meant. And I think
anarchism is the way to go.
Okay, Mr. America, there with your...
Yeah, you got to be true to the red, white. Let's get some blue in there. Look at that.
Blue. For those of you who are listening and aren't watching, my son likes to wear lots of America gear.
It's Labor Day.
Yeah, and troll the Republican girls. He likes to get Republican girls. And y'all, the Republican girls love him. I tell you.
Yeah, one time I saw one from across the room.
Yeah. So labor is not a valid form of property and cannot be owned or claimed. That's true, Patrick. I love Patrick. I don't know if you guys have watched his show Disenthrall, but you definitely should check it out. Patrick is amazingly intelligent, and also, he's not afraid of anybody. He's not afraid of a good fight. So you should definitely check out his show, and he's on a lot. And I'll be seeing Patrick at the end of this month when I go to see Larkin Rose do the Candles in the Dark seminar, and I'm really, really looking forward to that. I'm only coming on the left channel, Patrick. I don't know how to fix that, so Daniel will have to chime in if he.
Then We know you're in the chat. Get over here.
Unless he went to bed. So yeah, I think that there's a lot lacking in just in general. You think about conservatives, people who consider themselves conservatives, and they often talk about property rights and individual rights and things. And when you talk to them, you realize they have no understanding of it whatsoever. Like they don't know anything about what they're talking about generally. They just know issues, and they get their opinions from the mainstream media, whatever Fox News tells them or whatever CNN tells them, and then that's what they go with and that's what they spout. And so that's good for us in a lot of ways because we know what arguments are coming, and it's very easy to figure out what they're gonna talk about and defeat those arguments. So that's really what I wanted to talk about with the property rights. I think I covered it pretty much. I mean, it was just a conversation on Facebook, and I'm not unsympathetic to the plight of poor people because I was one. I mean, I lived in a tent several times when I was a kid. So, I mean, I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to not have food to eat. So I don't think he's evil for wanting to help people, but that's the guise that so many come with, that when they want to violate you and be violent to you is
communism was pretty much both extremes. Communism was, if it worked, it's perfect for everybody, and then everybody starved to death.
Yeah, we all starve together, right? If we're gonna starve, we all starve together.
But that's how it started. That's how you advertise it.
Okay. Well, I don't know what I was gonna say after that.
Yeah.
But their intentions are good, and that's one of the things, is that he may be sincere in what he's saying, but sincerity is absolutely no guarantee for truth. And I think that's something that we need to remember when we talk to people, is that their sincerity isn't what's in question. The truth is what's in question, and he may be willing to give whatever amount of his money, and that's fine. But the problem is that he can make those choices for everyone in the system that we have, the voting system. He gets to vote on what the taxes are, but I don't get a say in what happens to myself. And to simply say that it's doing your fair share and that there's no violence. He told me there's no violence in taxes. Come on. And I was like, well, what happens when people don't pay their taxes? I know people personally who haven't paid their taxes, and the police show up at their door and take them to jail, and they take their money or they take their homes, and it's not a good place to be in.
Isn't that like debtor's prison?
Yeah. Sort of, except it's not a debt. They don't owe it, but the law tells them they owe it, the authority.
So then they practically owe it.
They owe it according to the people who have the authority to use the guns to shoot you in the face if you don't pay. But they don't actually owe it. Right.
It's a matter of who's going to shoot you if you don't.
As he waves me away.
Next topic. Didn't Trump say he was going to nuke a hurricane?
I
What's
didn't.
That about?
I saw the memes, but I didn't actually see what he said. Does anybody know? Like, he said he's going to nuke a hurricane to stop it. I saw a meme where they were like saying, "Don't nuke the hurricanes because it'll send it back down at you." And there are people who actually shoot into hurricanes sometimes, and the bullets go in weird trajectories and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he said.
See those people in Florida that Naruto ran into a hurricane?
That
was pretty good.
Were they practicing for Area 51?
I think this is a separate thing. It's just people in Florida.
It's interesting to me, and I was talking with my producer Daniel about it the other day, that the whole Jeffrey Epstein sex scandal island, young girls, that all happened when that was going on. Area 51 was really big, and now nobody's talking about it anymore. And I don't know if that's just coincidental or if that was something that was kind of helped along by the state. I don't know. I'm not really a conspiracy theorist generally, but it certainly was convenient.
The intent. It's what they always say.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Interesting point. So my son Ronan, he knows a lot about.
No, don't do
he wants to be a mycologist at some point, or for maybe a career or hobby. So he's really interested in a lot of psychedelics and Terence McKenna and the philosophy surrounding. So I thought maybe we'd talk about that a little bit, and Paul Stamets. And what's the most interesting thing you're learning about the benefits of, mushrooms to people?
Well, it says...
Get a little closer. You don't have to lean in, just get a little closer.
So, Denver, Colorado, and Oakland, California legalized them, or decriminalized them. So that might mean that we can do some proper research now, which is nice.
Yeah. Did they actually decriminalize it, or did they just legalize it? I think it was just legal. Maybe Oakland decrimmed psilocybin, but I think it's only legalized in Colorado. I don't know. I'm sure somebody in the chat knows.
Either way, that's a big jump from Schedule 1, no medical value, highly addictive, banned substance.
Yeah.
So
that's good. What do you think the proper research is going to bring about? What do you think might be some of the benefits of that?
Well, it's good for alcoholics. I've heard that, like, it's one of the most reliable things to get addicts to stop doing what they're doing. Right. I'm not sure why that works, because I don't research it like that.
Yeah, not yet anyways. Yeah, I think that's one of the things I learned when I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, was that research is it's pretty faulty in a lot of ways. I'm sorry. Patrick says Trump threatened the hurricanes with nukes. Zeus tweeted back that he'd better stay indoors if he planned on messing with his weather. And Kim Jong-un said he was going to declare war on Olympus. Just Twitter things.
That's pretty funny.
Wow. That is great. There's some crazy stuff. But yeah, back to the psilocybin, when I was in the pharmaceutical industry, I worked as a pharmacy technician. And when you learn about what the process is and all of the legal regulations and things that they have to jump through, and then on the research end, who pays for the research? When you have the dairy industry paying for research on how dairy is good for people, then you've got, it's like going to court in the United States. Everyone's a cop, right? And the state pays their salary. So yeah, it's not like there's really great research coming out of some of these places. But do you know who's doing really good research right now? And is there any good research being done on psychedelics? I'm sure there is.
Oh, let's see. There's Johns Hopkins. I'm not sure. I don't think that's recent. I think it's from a while back. But they were doing, like, trials with the cancer patients. Everybody's talked about that, but it's like,
tell us about it, because I don't know about it.
Help with something like end of life anxiety is what they call it. Wow. Something like that, which is handy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like those, the law they have in, I think it's Oregon or Washington State. Maybe a couple states have them now, where, the end of life laws, like people should have to ask permission to take their own lives, but, where people can be put out of pain and just die peacefully. That's pretty great.
Have you heard in Australia they sell this thing called death in a can, where it just, like, suffocates you?
No.
Like, old people they just go buy from this shop. And
I think you've been reading the internet too much.
It's real. Look up Australia, death in a can.
I'll ask my Australian friends.
Australia, death in a can.
All right. Well, we've talked many times about, Paul Stamets and...
oh, yeah, cool guy, Paul.
Yeah, and Terence McKenna. I've tried to get him on the show. I would love to interview Paul Stamets. I think with Ronan here, I think there's so much interesting stuff going on with mycology. And
I know right now Paul Stamets is trying to save the bees, which is pretty cool. He has, like, the Joe Rogan that he's in goes over it very well. And it's been a while since I've watched that, but he's, like, talking about the national forests and how there's this fungus that grows on trees, but it's, like, only in the national forest, and he's gonna he has like this way to declare it a matter of national security. He's gonna go and save the bees with this contraption. I don't know how it works.
Right. I know he just recently, I think he got a patent, which, intellectual property, but he got a patent for an herbicide that doesn't, it doesn't affect insects or something. And it keeps away like thousands of different kinds of bugs. Wasn't that him that did that?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard about that, but I could have missed it.
I get confused sometimes. I see a lot of stuff and it doesn't all stick in the old brain. So, so what about Terrence McKenna? I know you had talked to me before about he had said what the heroic dose is, and that he sort of came up with the language to talk about.
Oh yeah, pretty much everybody who talks about DMT uses the language that Terrence McKenna made up to talk about DMT, and talked about the self-transforming machine elves and whatnot.
Wow. What is that? So DMT is...
It's dimethyltryptamine. It's a pretty common chemical that's out in nature. Like, we have stuff around here that contains it, but when you eat it, your stomach destroys it. So you need,
You need a concentrate of it, right?
No, because you can just drink DMT and it's gone. Your stomach destroys it, so you have to smoke it. And nothing just has enough to just smoke. So you have to extract it, and that's a pain. So there's that, and then there's ayahuasca. The active thing in ayahuasca is also DMT.
Right.
But it's combined with this other plant that neutralizes the thing in your stomach that destroys it. So that's why it's so slow and a much longer time.
Right. So we had talked before about in the sort of the modern Western world, a lot of these ancient drugs that were used tribally are sort of taken out of their tribal context, and that those ceremonies surrounding them actually serve the purpose of preparing people for the experiences that they may have, and for doing what you said, actually preparing the drug in an appropriate way that doesn't do damage to the body. Is that, you think that's true?
Doing damage to your body with psychedelics in particular is actually pretty difficult. Like, the mushrooms, they grow out in cow pastures, and you could collect an entire pasture and then dry it all out and then eat everything you find, and you can't overdose. It's pretty nice that way. So you shouldn't do that, because it'll probably be too much for you. But you won't chemically die.
Right.
And LSD is chemically one of the safest things you can have, because 50 micrograms is enough for the active dose. And 50 micrograms is nothing. That means a gram can dose 20,000 people.
Wow.
That's a lot of people.
So what I guess is, what are the benefits of, say, the ayahuasca ceremony that you go through? Besides, I think a lot of those things make people respect the experience they're about to have, and maybe have a better experience or get more out of it if they're trying to broaden their minds, open their horizons, whatever they want to call it.
Something is that, there is no ceremony around, say, LSD, and it's pretty easy to get compared to going to some plant that's nowhere near this other plant and then combining them in a special soup. So you can do stuff like that and then go party, and people do that, but that's on mushrooms specifically. I think is how lots of people have bad trips, is that they don't know exactly what they're doing, and then the setting of a party is chaotic, and that's not something you always want when you're losing your mind. So then you start to have a bad time.
I as you know, I've done LSD when I was in high school. I was younger, and I didn't really. There was only the aspect of partying, right? I just wanted to have a good time. But I haven't done LSD as an adult, but I have done mushrooms. I don't know what are those, psilocybin? What are they?
It'd have to be, yeah.
Yeah. So I've done those, and I had a much better experience, and I had a really therapeutic experience, and it was pretty incredible. And I think I kind of had that in my mind when I took them, is that I wanted to have some I'd been suffering from depression, and I had some issues that were going on that I really wanted to kind of take apart. And it really helped me. My depression was really lifted, and I had been on antidepressants, and then I quit taking them, and I, I really.
You shouldn't take antidepressants and mushrooms at the same time.
I wasn't. I said I quit taking them. I quit taking them for a while before I did the mushrooms, and I think it had a lot better outcome. Like, it was way better than the antidepressants, because the antidepressants just made me feel more or less emotional and less connected with my emotions, whereas with the mushrooms I found that I wasn't disconnected with my emotions. I was able to look at them more objectively, but I still had them.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like a zombie that was looking at, someone else, or not able to really think clearly. Like, I really thought I was thinking very clearly, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. But it was also really cool because everything was like vibrating, and I could see so well. It was really great.
Yeah, they do. You can give people eye tests with and without small doses of psilocybin, and it does just increase your eyesight, so that's kind of cool.
Do you think that's something that researchers could eventually, like, have medicines for people with eye problems that come from that in particular?
Maybe. I'm not sure if it increases your eyesight beyond what your body can do, and it just, like, loosens up something, sets some safeguard lower, so then, I think that Albert Hoffman extracted psilocybin. He was like, this is the thing that does it. And then he just went around selling it for a little while under some brand name. Like, just in pills. You could just go to Walgreens and get psilocybin pills.
What's the thing that interests you most about psychedelics, and what do you think their benefit to people really is? I've heard a lot of people say that, psychedelics are mind broadening, and when you take psychedelics, the reason that the state doesn't want people to have psychedelics is because it makes you question authority.
It does pretty much reset propaganda, I guess.
Wow. Is there
So what were you
asking? So what's your like, what do you really find interesting, fascinating? I know you love the chemistry of it.
There's nothing else like it. Like, you're not even allowed to research it, and there's nothing else like it. So that's a pretty big blind spot on. It's a whole class of thing that we're not allowed to research, and why not?
Right. Why not? And I know we had talked before about, some of the useful things that you can do, or some of the amazing things just about mushrooms in general, and their what are the tendrils that go underground?
Mycelium.
Mycelium. And so talk a little bit about that, about just mushrooms in general and how amazing they actually are, and their communication with the symbiosis with other.
Yeah, so for one, spores are pretty cool, right? So they make millions and millions of spores at once, and pretty much none of them live, but none of them can grow, and they can, like, live in space and whatnot. Some of them.
So they don't need oxygen to survive, or
I think they can go dormant. So I don't know. They're, like, really, really hardy to specific things and really fragile to other things. Part of it is that whatever they land on is a highly contested thing because there's a billion other things also making spores. So it's kind of impressive that any of them grow at all. I mean, something has to, but it's amazing it's not all just like mold.
Right. So what is with the symbiosis? Like, there are trees that they actually work with, right?
The Amanita muscaria is like the one that's in Mario, and it grows around pine trees, and it makes these structures around the pine tree's roots that help it get water whenever there's a dry season. And the tree in turn sounds too like it's a decision from the tree, but I don't know how else to say it. Like, it could just be some chemical reaction, but it gives the mushroom sugar to live, and like, this is something that has to happen for the mushroom to continue. The only place it can live is around pine trees. How did it figure that out? That's a pretty cool thing.
Right. Yeah, and didn't you say before that there are uh, that symbiosis between the mycelium and it'll tell which trees to get, like which nutrients it needs. How does that? It actually helps the trees to get the nutrients. It'll tell them
There is
where
stuff
they are.
like
Or?
that. There's like some sort of communication system that mycelial networks and plants have, but I'm not sure the specifics about any of them. I'm not sure if the amanitas, like I'm pretty sure it's all amanitas that do that too. I'm not sure if it's just like one tree and one mushroom or if it's all connected. I say one mushroom, I mean more one colony.
Right.
It's kind of difficult to just isolate one thing. Like their cells, they can just move the cell nucleus into other cells for a little
That's
while.
amazing.
Their cells are unique.
Yeah.
They're closer to plants than animals, and lots of them get vitamin D from sunlight, which is a pretty skin-like thing. I don't know how they'd manage that.
Wow, that's really interesting. So they can just move nutrition from one cell, like open their cell and actually put.
Yeah, they make like these tubes.
Huh.
They're like cell tubes.
That's interesting. And what is that? You were also telling me that lichen is an interesting. It's a symbiotic organism, right? Or
lichen is between algae and fungi. There's like algae that lives in it.
So it's part algae, part fungi, and they form a new.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's there's this fungus and then algae starts growing in it, and like if you keep algae away from it, then it never becomes a lichen and it's just the fungus, or if it has to have it to grow at all. It could be either way because algae is everywhere.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
So what else would you like for people to know about psychedelics and what their benefits might be to people? Why should people take them, do you think? I mean, you haven't taken them.
Well, it's not exactly
just a
something
disclaimer,
you
my
should
son does not take psychedelics. He's underage.
well, like if you're over 21, it's just fine.
Right? Well, no, but
Uh,
DCS is probably going to show up at our house and take you away and your sister.
I lost my train of thought.
Sorry. So what do you think the benefits to humanity from psychedelics in particular could
I don't know, that humanity is a pretty broad section. It seems more personal than that. It's more like this individual got this effect this one time and you can't replicate that.
So, but now isn't it replicatable though? Because doesn't, when you take DMT, there seems to be like a usual experience. Like people tend to see the same things.
Lots of people get the they say they see a mandala and then they break through it and then they go to some underground dome with the elves. But lots of people get some other experience entirely. And then an even smaller amount of people get nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing. It's just
they
smoke it, they black out, it's nothing.
Huh. So do you think they just don't remember, or it has a different effect in their biology?
I don't know. Maybe if we could research it.
Exactly.
But yeah, I don't know how that's possible.
Yeah.
I'm no chemist yet. Gotta get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're a junior in high school, right? You're working on chemistry and learning lots of things about it. So there's a lot to know, and I think there are benefits to, just like with anything else. I think you could probably overdo it. I don't want to base my life around it. But
as far as doing it too often, that's also a little like it's not impossible, but it's relatively difficult because the tolerance is. It takes like a week to wear off. So you can't just go and have some crazy trip every day, which it might mess up its medicinal properties too, because if you want to make some sort of supplement, you have to wait some time before you can do it again.
Sure.
And I don't know like the dose threshold. This dose is 3 days of tolerance and whatnot, but somebody could figure that out.
Yeah. I think it's like anything else though, that moderation is usually a good thing with most things. So you want to. And
even though you can't chemically overdose, you can give yourself post-traumatic stress disorder. That's a real thing that people do. They take too much and it like blows them away.
Well, because it's a bad trip or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, I can imagine. Because it seems so real. I mean, the experience is still real to them, so it would have the same impact on their body. That
Like psychotic breaks are kind of a real problem that you should look out for if you want to do that in any like high doses.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the one thing people need to recognize is that just because it's natural doesn't make it automatically the safest thing in the world.
Oh, yeah. 2CB is some chemical that people sell as LSD a lot. And a lot of that, like if you take a lot of it thinking it's LSD, that'll just kill you. But LSD is super safe, so you have to not trust LSD. And you can buy this chemical called Ehrlich, I think, and it like helps you test it. But then if people crush up melatonin and put that in their LSD, it just you shouldn't trust it.
Yeah, I guess that's an argument for having it on the free market.
Because if you could buy your LSD from Amazon, then write reviews,
right,
that problem would just be over.
Yeah, you would know, like people would know this is trustable, this is not, and the reputations would be established and things like that. So I think that's where we're gonna leave it now for this time. If there's anything else you wanted to say about about Terrence McKenna, is there anything you want to say about him? He was a pretty incredible guy.
I mean, he was a pretty cool guy, yeah. So you can't believe all the stuff he says, but neither did he. And his whole thing was to give you something to think about. And he did that pretty well.
Yeah, and I love his...
He's so articulate. He was so articulate and eloquent.
He was, and his voice is so strange. He sounds to me like the mom from that 70s show or something, like some Midwestern mother. And what do you think about that?
Yeah, I could see that.
I love listening to him though, and Alan Watts. I really like
Alan Watts.
I like their. I don't necessarily just take in everything they say as the gospel truth, but I do really enjoy listening to people who want you to start to think. I think that's probably the best takeaway from all of this is that no matter what we're told about anything, it's okay to question those things. And so that's how you get either stronger in your positions or you change your positions. And so we want to be able to think about anything and to think from the different sides of it, outside the box. And so I think that psychedelics help people to do that.
Oh yeah, they make you more creative, like statistically, for like 2 years after you have them.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So with that, we are not advocating that people do things that they are going to go to the rape cages for. Just be careful, be safe. I live your life and try to minimize the state in it and do the things you need to do, but don't not do things because some politician has deemed that it's wrong. But anyways, until next time, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show, and peace.